Hey, thanks for joining me for a thought for today. Let me ask you a question. Is it possible for God's presence in us to affect those that are around us? Is that possible? Think about it. In one of the last videos that I shared from Exodus 33, and I want to come back to that here in a few minutes, but first let me share something that the Lord spoke to me while I was in prayer a few weeks ago. It just reminded me of something that had happened several years ago. Loretta and I had ministered in California for a couple of years, and then we moved back to Oregon. This was like 50 years ago. And we were with the Assemblies of God, and the superintendent of the Assemblies of God in Oregon at that time was a guy named Robert E. Book. And it seemed like every time Loretta and I would get around Robert Book, Pastor Book, the presence of God that was on him would begin to affect us in an emotional sense. We found ourselves fighting tears that were coming to our eyes. Both of us experienced this. And it was just the presence of God that was in this man had an effect on us personally and even physically. And as I think about that, I want to go back to Exodus 33, verse 11 that I read to you the last time, where it says, "So the Lord spoke to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend." Well, that's just the first part of verse 11 there in Exodus 33, but the rest of this verse, I want you to listen to it as well. It says, "And he," meaning Moses, "would return to the camp. But his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, did not depart from the tabernacle or from the tent." Here was Joshua being mentored by Moses to be the next leader in Israel. But when Moses would go back to the camp to take care of business that was there, Joshua didn't go with him. He stayed in the tent. Why? Why didn't he leave the tent? Why didn't he go back to be with the people? Well, I believe the reason he didn't, because he was in that tent when Moses and the Lord were having this face-to-face encounter. And he saw what was going on there, and he realized the presence of God is in this place. I don't want to leave this place. I'm going to stay right here. And I remember when we were pastoring our last church, we had a true visitation of the Lord in our services, and it was just an experience that went on for several years. And we began having revival services every Friday night. And we did that for 6-7 years. And it was just an experience of God's presence that we did experience. And the presence of God was so thick in that place that people, when they came, they just didn't want to leave. They wanted to stay. It seemed like they just didn't want to go anywhere. And there was seldom that we ever got out of the services there before midnight. I mean, they just didn't want to leave. God's presence affected them. God's presence in that building affected the people that came to the point they didn't want to leave. And there were times where we would go back to the back of the sanctuary and we start flashing the lights off and on. And just say, "Hey, it's okay. You guys can go home now. We'll be back here next week." And so then they would leave. But that was what happened. It was the presence of God. And as I was thinking about those things, I began to pray. I said, "Lord, I want your presence to be in me to such a dimension that I affect those that are around me. I want that to happen, Lord." And I'll just say right now, I don't believe I'm there yet. And I want to be. And some of you might say, "Well, you've been in the ministry for over 50 years and you're not there yet. What hope is there for me?" I want you to know I'm telling you some things that I'm learning as I go. And hopefully you won't have to learn them in a long process that has taken me. Every one of us can experience this kind of God's presence. Yeah. I've even found myself praying, "Lord, I want to be so full of you that I leak." What I mean by that is I want his presence to be so in me that when I get around other people, it splashes out on them. It's kind of like a sponge, you put it in a bucket of water and you soak up as much water as you can in that sponge, and then you lift it out of the bucket and it begins to drip everywhere. Oh, I want to be a drip. I want to be a drip in the lives of other people around me. Yeah, I hope I'm making sense in all of this. I want to be so full of his presence that I can be used by him to change the atmosphere of situations that are going on around me. I know some of you could feel like, "Man, you're being a little egotistical here, aren't you? You think you're some big shot in spiritual ways." That's not my heart. I know that I'm nothing. Nothing spiritually, especially without Jesus. I'm nothing without him. I just want him. I just want him. You see, it's not about us. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's all about Jesus. And I think of Colossians chapter 1, where Paul is talking about a mystery that had been hidden from the beginning of time until the time Jesus came. And then he tells us what that mystery is. And he says there in Colossians 1:27, this mystery is Christ in you, the hope of glory. The presence of Jesus within us is the hope that the glory of God can be released to everyone around us, that we can affect the very atmosphere of what's going on in the places and situations that we are facing on a daily basis. I hope that that's your prayer for your own life, that you'll be so full of Jesus that you literally will leak his presence everywhere you go. Hey, God bless. Have a wonderful day. Love you guys. Bye-bye.